Okay, Vlad, how you doing, man?
I'm good.
Welcome to Mac Talk. This is a new thing. It's my podcast called Mac Talk, and you're actually the first guest. Appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
First, I want to start off with, I was thinking earlier, I was just thinking about all the things that I wanted to ask and talk about. I wanted to set it off with, thank you, first of all. You gave me, you allowed me on your platform, and your platform is actually one of the main places where a lot of people know me from. And I appreciate the opportunity. I also appreciate the opportunity for you even coming over here. You know what I'm saying? So definitely thank you for that. You know what I mean?
No doubt.
So let's get to it. Vlad. Is that your real name?
A real name.
That's your real name. A lot of people don't know what you look like.
Here I am.
People think you're black. People think and you're just, this is you. So this is what Vlad looks like. A lot of people is going to be like, yo, that's crazy. Where are you from?
I was born in the Ukraine, but at the time it was part of the Soviet Union. Mm-hmm. So it was actually Russia at the time. Now it's an independent country, but at the time it was part of the USSR. And I was living there until 5 years old, at which point my family moved to the US. Okay. And then we hopped around different parts of the US.
Do you remember anything from that? I mean, you're 5. So
a few things. Living under a communist system. I remember like a paranoia, in my family, where people would say something and my family would be like, shh, and they'd point up to the ceiling because they were scared that the walls were being bugged, and the KGB would come and take you away. And you know what I'm saying? You being Chinese, I think you can kind of relate to that type of system. A few things like that, and a few nice memories. Being like on the beach with my family and so forth. But really, most of my memories come from the U.S.
So then, from you came from there, and then you went to Cali?
I went to Massachusetts first.
Massachusetts.
We lived there for a few years, and then we moved to the Bay Area from 3rd grade on, and that's pretty much where I stayed. Most of my life. All through high school, through college. I went to school at UC Berkeley, and then in 2002 I moved to New York.
Is there a big Ukraine or Russian population out there?
Not in San Francisco there is, and we stayed there for a little while, maybe a year. But then my family moved to the Bay Area, primarily in San Mateo, and that area had no Russian kids. So I was the only Russian kid, period, in my school, and my name was Vlad. And essentially, this was during the Cold War with Russia. So everyone would call me a dirty communist, and that type of thing. So there was a very kind of, I just remember kind of being very much alone and outcast, and the other kids kind of not fucking with me because of my nationality.
Yeah, so the population, the majority of the population was what?
White, Asian, Spanish.
Okay.
A lot of Filipinos, a lot of Chinese, a lot of Mexicans. And also in my area it was Tongans and Samoans, and white people as well. Kind of a mix.
And then how did you find the way to fit in, so to speak?
Hip hop kind of came sort of early, maybe 5th grade.
Yeah.
Because I'm in my 40s, so we're talking about the 80s, and hip hop, started in New York, but right around the time I was in elementary school, hip hop was actually becoming national. The New York City Breakers were starting to get on TV. The first hip hop records were coming out, like Grandmaster Flash or Melly Mel, the first Run DMC album, and so forth. And I started breakdancing as a kid.
Oh.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
You still got some moves?
No, not really. Not really. But I was really, really into it. I had a little crew in my elementary school. We would take the cardboard and go battle with other crews and stuff like that. And, from the breakdancing and the music and the graffiti and all the appreciation for all the different parts of hip hop kind of came during that time.
So you did graph too?
A little bit, just playing around, not seriously. I just wasn't I was, I liked to draw, but I was never that great at it, so I never really pursued it as much.
So at that time, hip hop gave you a, kind of way, something to identify with.
Yeah, because
the other kids,
that's kind of when I started hanging around the black kids and the Spanish kids, and that's I think we're all kind of outcasts in our own way.
Yeah,
that's kind of how I felt like I found my little niche, which fast forward decades later, I'm still kind of in it.
That's dope. So, did you once you got into the music? How did you get into the music?
I love the music, and I would listen to it all the time. And when I got to college, but I wasn't, because I grew up in the suburbs, originally, right? But then when I got to college to UC Berkeley, and Berkeley and Oakland are like, right side by side. That's when I actually started seeing actual rappers, like Hieroglyphics, like Souls of Mischief and Dell and all those guys would be like hanging out on the block, and they're getting signed to major labels. And I had played some instruments, when I was younger. I played like saxophone and clarinet and some keyboards and stuff like that. So I remember buying a drum machine and kind of just started, in a sampler, like I had an MPC 60 at that time. And I started making beats, and I started fucking with some of the local rappers and putting together little demos and stuff like that. And like, like for example, like Mystic Journeyman and Grouch and some of these guys that people kind of know from that area were all kind of part of these kind of circles that I was rolling around in. And I was making beats and putting together demos. But
what year was that?
95, 96, like 94, 95, 96. I was making beats, and I was, spending all my days making beats as I was going to college as well. And but it wasn't taking off once again. Like I was making these demos and these beats and these little, getting together with rappers, but none of the rappers I was really fucking with were really serious. Like none of them ended up making it really, you know what I mean? And but I spent years making beats. And at one point I was like, all right, well, I'm never going to be as good as DJ Premier or Dr. Dre. Like I just had to, like, okay, like I felt like I was wasting my time in a way. And I remember at a house party, I just moved into like a new place. At a house party, and some DJs came over and DJed my party, and they left their turntables that night, and they were going to pick them up the next day. So I just jumped on the turntables, and it was like just naturally, like I just knew how to blend and mix and stuff like that. I remember I made my first mixtape that day.
So nobody showed you. You just like
nobody showed me, but I'd been making beats for so long
that you kind of
I'd already knew the structure and kind of how to match beats and everything else like that. So I was like, oh, like this is like natural to me. So I'm like, I've always, here's sort of my entryway into hip hop. So I bought a pair of CDJ 1000s, which were the first like digital turntables before anyone really had them. And I started DJing clubs in like San Francisco and Oakland and stuff like that. And I was doing that for about a year. And after about a year, I just realized that I'm not gonna make any money in the Bay Area doing this. I was making mixtapes. I was actually the first DJ to actually put out my mixtapes on the internet. This was like 2000, and I started seeing the effects of these mixtapes. So in 2002, I was like dead broke by this time. I actually moved out to New York, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to throw myself into the mixtape scene and really just do it full time. So in 2002, I moved to New York. I was essentially homeless at the time, just living on my friend's couch, and just had a backpack full of CDs and would walk around. Would go to Brooklyn, drop them off on consignment. Go to Queens, drop them off on consignment. Go to Canal Street, drop them off on consignment, and slowly just kind of started building up my name in the mixtape scene. And
so let me ask you before we do that.
No, go ahead.
At that time? What was the difference between like the hip hop scene in California in the Bay and New York City? And who was popping at that time? Like who?
Well, the hip hop scene was the hip hop scene. Like West Coast always had a mix. Always had. Death Row was already. I think they were kind of on their way out at that point. You know what I mean? But New York was popping, all the places was popping, but I was really focused on the mixtape scene. and the Bay, and really, I mean, the West Coast in general just didn't have a mixtape scene at all. Whereas in New York, you had the
Kid, DJ
Who
Clue.
Kid, Green Lantern, DJ Clue, big names.
And they were making
Dirty Harry,
making
whatever
money.
else. Yeah, they were making money. They were supporting themselves. And I came out and I started working with those guys. And then with those, actually,
You started working with them?
Yeah.
How did you do that? How did you connect from somebody coming from California?
Sort of a weird story. I got to New York and I was sleeping on my man's couch, like this family of Trini kids who are club promoters. And, I'd gone out there once already, DJ, they liked me. And I was like, yo, I'm going to move to New York. And I stay on your couch. They're like, all right, come on. So I was out there and they were giving me some gigs, but the gigs were like starting to kind of fall off. And I wasn't able to support myself. I barely had enough money to really buy food. So I got a gig at a strip club in Brooklyn, but it was like a dying strip club. It wasn't one of these popping.
It wasn't like a lit strip club.
Yeah, it wasn't like City Nights or whatever. These.
But I think strip clubs back then really wasn't.
Well, some were like Sue's Rendezvous was popping, but that's not what I was DJing. Yeah, like I was doing some bullshit, and this dude I knew, who I know, who I invited over to just hang out while I was DJing, brought DJ Dirty Harry, and he was. Like Nas's DJ and Alicia Keys' DJ.
Yeah.
And he was really dope with the blends. So me and him kind of started talking and we came up with this idea to do this Biggie mixtape called Rap Phenomenon, which he had these Biggie acapellas, which were really hard to come by back then. And we just blended them with different beats. And this mixtape came out and it was like, it exploded. It was huge. Like MTV did a feature on it, and everyone was like
beats that you produced or
no, just commercial beats.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm like kind of DJing, producing, kind of like taking Biggie vocal, putting it on like a 50 Cent beat.
Yeah, blending,
like that type of thing. And that mixtape did really well. Like it actually kind of blew up for the first time ever. I started building a business around selling mixtapes to like mom and pop stores, which isn't completely legal, but it's past statute of limitations, so it's whatever.
Yeah.
And this mixtape did so well that we decided to do a part 2 and focus on Tupac. It's called Tupac Rap Phenomenon, and we pulled in Green Lantern, who was Eminem's DJ at the time. And we just we worked for like months on this thing, and it came out and it like exploded even bigger. It got mixtape of the year at the Mixtape Awards, and Rolling Stone and Double XL and everyone else kind of gave it kind of the highest honors. And at that point it was like, okay, now I'm in the game. Like I was able to like buy a condo and and start to support myself. Like I wasn't rich by any stretch of the imagination, but I was actually supporting myself by coming up with subsequent mixtapes and kind of working off this like mixtape business.